And welcome back to another fish room video. So this is my private fish room. There are a silly amount of aquariums. I've kept and bred fish for about 40 years now. Yes, it has been that long. Yes, I am that old. It's horrifying. But I thought in this video I'm going to go through what filtration I use and what heat I use for all these systems, because I'm in southeast Queensland. It is absolutely freezing at the moment. And yeah, quite a few people have asked me, oh, how do you heat this? How do you heat that? So in this video, hopefully it'll shed a little bit more light on what I use, what works and what doesn't work. And there's a few issues I've got with controllers and stuff like that. Okay, because we're in the subtropics, it is not too cold. It is still cold. I think unheated tanks like this system here, which has got shrimp in it at the moment, is hovering about that 14 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit too cold for tropical fish. They do not like it. Certain things will cope, but a lot will not, and then you're going to get problems with stressed fish, white spot, all that carry on, which you just don't want to deal with when you have lots of tanks and a fish room. So roughly you want 1 watt per litre of heating, which means if you've got 100 litres, you want a 100 watt heater. If it's outside and it's stupid cold, which we've got a horrible cold wind at the moment, oh yeah, you need a little bit more than 1 watt per litre. So you can even double up on that, which is kind of ridiculous. So let's start with this system. So this system here is a 6-foot tank down the bottom. It is 12 2-foot tanks, and they are all connected together. So there is a pump down the bottom. If we look in my messy sump, that little pump down the bottom in the corner, that is pumping water, well, it's actually turned off at the moment, that is pumping water up that PVC pipe into the tops, which are just these little tap bits here, and then it overflows these tanks. There is an overflow in each tank, which goes through the tank. Yes, you have to drill holes in your tank to do all this, but it's pretty easy. Into this tank, that overflows, and then it goes back into the sump. It is a super easy setup. This setup is a little bit different and a little bit better, and I'll tell you why in a second. But with these, if you want to turn one of these tanks off, you have to turn 2 tanks off, which is the downfall of this system. But it uses less pipes and bits and pieces. It's only really 1 pipe going to the top, 6 taps, and then just overflows. So it's a pretty easy system. I've got it turned off at the moment because to heat this system, it's about 1,000 litres, and I need another 1,000 watts of heat. And I'm using a lot of heat. My power bill is crazy, like $60, $70 a day crazy. Do I make any money? No. Am I continuously poor? Yes. Do I still have fish? Yes, because I'm crazy. That's pretty much summing it up. So if you've only got 1 or 2 tanks, don't worry, it's going to cost you practically nothing to run. When you have like 50, 60, I don't even know how many tanks I've got, probably more than that, yeah, it gets a little bit crazy. As long as the fish are alive and happy and breeding, it works. So don't worry about, you know, stress, trying to pay the power bill all the time, all that wonderful stuff. But anyway, 1 watt per litre is pretty much the golden rule. Oh look, there's one of the puffer fish. There he is, silhouette of fish. I don't even get to see them that often, they just like to hide. But these tanks are currently turned off, but these 3 tanks, I have freshwater puffer fish in each. I have 100 watt heater in each. So it's about 60 litre tank. It's down a little bit so they don't jump out. So you're probably looking at about 50 litres, but I've got 100 watts of heat, and that is maintaining the temperature 23, 24 degrees Celsius, which is fine. If I had this all set up, 1,000 watts of heat is like 300 watt heaters just to maintain the temperature on that. And because it's not insulated, it's just plain glass to the air, you may need a little bit more. If it was insulated, it would be a little bit easier to heat up. I obviously own an aquarium shop. The whole shop is heated, and yeah, it's very easy to heat the tanks in the shop. The reason this is not enclosed is humidity issues, and I say that in most of my videos. For the fish room, yeah, most of these stands are like 20, 30 years almost old. I've got these secondhand like 25 years ago and they're all steel. So steel will rust with humidity no matter how many times you coat them with rust-proof paint. wood warps, absorbs water, and yeah, the same sort of thing happens. And I notice a lot of the newer YouTubers use wood stands. After 20 years, they don't work. They really don't. I have had no luck with the high humidity we have where I live. So if you live in a humid area and you've got wooden stands, expect to replace them after 10, 15 years before they start to warp, and then you wonder why all your tanks start cracking, which, yeah, we won't even go into all that. But anyway, that is where we are with our steel stands and why we're outside in the cold. But that system there, yeah, is just turned off at the moment, apart from those 3 tanks. This system here, a little bit different. So exactly the same idea. So it's got a 6-foot sump down the bottom. It has 12 2-foot tanks. These are all tropical fish, like my little panda barbs. They are lovely fish, aren't they? Yep, we're going to spawn those in spring. My T-bar convicts, which I bred, oh God, a year ago. We've got some Senegals in here. I know, I have currently sold out of Senegals in the shop, but I will be bringing some in this weekend if you're watching this on upload. Only a few left because I do want to grow some out and see what they look like. And I keep selling them before I even have a chance to do that. But all these tanks here, tropical fish, blind cave tetras, my baby catfish, cooler catfish, some wolf cichlids, assorted things in this system. Now, this is set up a little bit differently. It has a pump down the bottom. So this, again, my sumps are not really designed for filtration. They're just designed for water. And I should have probably actually gone through that with this as well. This has got a whole lot of bristlenose logs in it. There they all are there. Each one of these tanks has a sponge filter in it, and they've got to be the cheapest, best filter you can ever get. They're under $10 and they work. They last for years as well. They're a lot better than the ones with the suction caps that fail because they just sit on the bottom and just last. You probably get 3, 4, 5 years out of one continuous use for under $10. So they're probably the best filter you can get if you've got more than just a couple of tanks or you've got baby fish and stuff like that. But each one of these is run by a sponge filter, and I've got a big air pump around the other side. That's what all this PVC is here. I just run tubing off the PVC, so that is the air going to all of those. So, well, you can see it right at the front. There you go. Tubing going everywhere into sponge filters, etc., etc. So the filtration is not the sump. The sump is just to hold water, to pump all the water around these tanks. So when I do a water change, I'm not taking water out of each tank. I'm just taking water out of the sump, adjusting new water in the barrel, and pH and dechlorinating, and then popping the water back in. And I only do like 10%, 15% a week, and that maintains everything perfectly. So yeah, it's a lot less work. So out of all these 24 tanks, if you don't count the sumps, it's technically only 2 tanks. 1 tank, 2 tanks. Well, now that it's turned off, it's 3 tanks, 4, 5 tanks. But I just do a water change on the sump, and that does the whole system. If I had filtration in the sump and I pumped new water in the sump, it would knock off a lot of the nitrifying bacteria. And I don't need a whole lot of gunk in the sump. It's just to hold the equipment, which is the heating, which I'll explain now because we've waffled on about all that sort of stuff. And yeah, just supporting more water volume. So each one of these tanks is 1,000 litres technically because the water flows through them. So they're not like 50, 60 litres. So that's why you can support a lot of fish in a tank and they're fine, because yeah, if that was just one sponge filter and that was turned off, a bit of a nightmare with the amount of chemical waste those fish produce. So that is how these systems work. I have a tiny little NIOS pump there, which is covered in gunk, but it's working perfectly well, pumping the water up through the PVC with all the cobwebs and stuff, and the little taps up the top. So taps on PVC pipe all the way along, and that water is just trickling in. You can sort of see with that one there. Oh, can we focus in there? See, I never cleaned the glass. There you go. So the water is trickling in there. It is going into an overflow, and I've got the overflows in the top of the tank, not in the bottom like the other system you saw. And that water goes all the way down PVC pipe into the sump and then just in here. So I've got each one of these tanks completely turned off the system. No, wait, that doesn't even make sense. I've got each one of these tanks separate from the next tank. So I have a T-piece there. So half the water is pumping along this line with all these taps, and then the other half is pumping up the top. Yeah, that makes more sense. I'm trying to use my words, but my words are just not working because it is cold and it is early morning, and yeah, etc. Disclaimer, disclaimer. But that is how that works. So the water just trickles through and overflows and then goes back into the sump. So now we had a total disaster overnight with this system because I used these Inkbird controllers. See how it's saying 18.5 degrees? Yeah, it should be 22. It was 22 last night, and then I heard beeping. Beeping is continuous heating, and one of my members did say that you can change that in the settings, but apparently you can't change that in the settings. So if it continuously heats because there's not enough heaters, yeah, it will go error 5 and turn off, which is, yeah, to stop it overheating, obviously, so it doesn't fry your fish. But if you're stupid like I am and only have 600 watts of heat, so I had two 300 watt heaters connected to my controller, and both of these are heating. I think different models you have heating and cooling. This controller just controls on and off with 2 plugs, and I've got 2 heaters plugged into that. So yeah, it just wasn't enough to heat up this whole system. Because I had just turned off a few extra 300 watt heaters, and I thought, no, that'll be enough. It's sort of insulated in this area. It wasn't enough. So unfortunately, I did not hear the beeping, even though these are Wi-Fi and I could have connected to my phone. I did not. So we went down to, yeah, 18.5 degrees, but it's roughly about 19 in the tanks. Fish will be fine. It's heating up again. I have added a couple of extra 300 watt heaters. So now I have the magical 1000 watts going in the system, which is actually 1200 watts of heat. So that is how that is working. To show you a better system, these tanks here, which again are 12 2-foot tanks, but I've only got 8 of them going at the moment. I've got the bottom row just turned off. This system is a little bit messier than the system behind me because I used bits and pieces from older systems when I moved this system here. Yeah, so again, being slack, sort of reusing all my fittings and bits and pieces, so it's not as practical as it would be if I was to make it from scratch, but there is the controller working fine. It is set at 22.5, which ironically means about 24 degrees. I think we are 24.1 in the tanks. Yeah, I think that needs to be calibrated because it's a super, super old thing, but 24 is the proper temperature, not 22. Don't even ask me there. Inkbird, if you're watching this, how do you adjust that? Can you adjust that? I don't know. I'm not sponsored by anyone, obviously. Otherwise, I would have a nice Flash fish room. This is not Flash. But anyway, this controller is in a sump. So they have 2 little probes to them. So little probes and the heat. There's my 2 heaters there in the sump. We're going to go around the back. This system is same sort of idea. We have overflows in each of the tanks. It's just pushed into some dodgy old PVC pipe. The water flows back down into this tiny little tub here, which is about a 100-litre tub. Oh, my coolie loaches are going crazy at the moment. Look at them. They are so awesome. I do need to spawn them. They're just getting bigger and bigger. But anyway, the water is overflowing into these pipes. Ideally, it would be a better setup than this, but hey, it's working, and I've recycled all the plumbing from other systems. And yeah, as it's recycled and it goes back in there, the water is pumped from a great white pump, which these are from Delure. Awesome pumps if you've got a lot of tanks. Fully adjustable. Yeah, and it pumps the water up through all these, which is the same sort of setup as the other one. The water just trickles back in and goes into the sump. And again, the sump has the heaters in it, it has the probes for the thermostat, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, all the filtration in these tanks are the sponge filters because they work really, really well. So pretty much each tank has 1 sponge filter in it. Some have 2 because I've got extra ones. they were down the bottom row. And the only reason I've got the bottom row turned off at the moment is heating again, because I'm only using 900 watts of heat. So 300 watt heaters. I've got 2 on the controller. I've got an extra one there because I don't want beeping and I want to maintain the temperature in these tanks. So that is how this ratty little system's working. Look, if you had this system in a warm garage or inside, you could get away with 2 300 watt heaters for the whole lot, no problem. It's just got to do with ambient temperature. But yeah, that's how that's working. My bigger tanks, and this is a murky, what is this? 6 foot by 3 by 2.5, giant gourami, Senegals, all sorts of weird things, Nicaraguan parrots, whole lot of geophagus, just grow up. Assorted fish in a lovely brown tank because of the driftwood. I have an AQUARIUMS controller, that thing there, which works the same as the Inkbird, and that just has a 600 watt titanium heater. And I think this tank is, 800 litres, 900 litres, something like that. But that is working fine. I only keep it at 22 degrees. But I think because the tank is tucked away in the corner, and there's no airflow here, this one works perfectly. I know, so that's nice and simple. There is 4 plugs on the controller, so I can add extra heaters if I panic or if it gets stupidly cold, but one is doing it perfectly fine. Yeah, and you can get 600 watt titanium Shago heaters. Online, they've just gone crazy. I don't sell them anymore. I think the biggest heaters I sell are Awazi 400 watts. But yeah, you can get all sorts of different brands, and it just depends on what brand you're used to, etc., etc. These tanks, which are 9 foot by 4 foot, yeah, they go 4 foot front to back. Crazy big tanks, lots of big fish. I keep these at 23, 24 degrees. Yeah, peacock bass, all sorts of stuff. My messy sump. I need to tidy this sump up. Okay, I have 2,400 watts of heat in here. So I have an AQUARIUMS controller. It's at 23, 24 degrees. Yeah, the heaters are in there somewhere, and they are 4 600 watt Shago titanium heaters. That is a 1100 litre sump. Yeah, now my sump does have a whole lot of coral rubble to stop the GH from crashing, because all these big messy fish are big and messy. Yes, they are. So that's sort of how that works. It's pretty straightforward. Oh, the filtration. I keep forgetting about filtration. That's a swimming pool filter. That's filled with K1 media. So the water pumps into there, circulates in there, then pumps back in. I have a whole lot of dodgy milk crates with sponge and foam, which is this stuff here. That's my pre-filters. I just rip that out, clean it, dump it back in. That's it. Filtration, filtration. Yeah, my water quality is good. I do occasionally run ozone. My ozone is completely turned off at the moment. Ozone just kills organics in the water. Kills everything. Yeah, but it's turned off because I mainly run ozone for half the year and then turn it off when it's colder because I don't really need it at the moment. That's probably about it. So heating and filtration is pretty straightforward for these 2 big tanks. They kind of look murky, but they're not. Like, that is 4 foot front to back, and you can see right at the back. Yes, you can. I think it's just the reflections, and I never clean the glass. I know, never clean the glass, but it is what it is. So that is what's heating those. The Queensland Groper is the same sort of setup. There he is there. He needs to go in a bigger tank because he is almost front to back in the tank, and that is then another, what is this, 6 foot by 3 by 2.5. So he's getting pretty big. Yeah, so we're going to upgrade, but that has an Inkbird controller on a messy sump. I've just been cleaning out his protein skimmer. I need to upgrade more circulation for him because he just completely destroyed his wave maker. Oh, look at that. Mangled the wave maker. Yeah, great, good fish. He's like, haha, give me another one to destroy. Yeah, so he's going to be upgraded. I'm going to use these tanks for Africans and stuff like that. But same idea. I think this one is a 600 watt titanium Shago heater as well. This system, which you probably cannot see at the moment because it is looking very yellow from just outside nightmare. two 4-foot tanks, so about 500 litres. I have an AQUARIUMS canister with a heater in the AQUARIUMS canister. That's it. It's working fine. I have overflows in this tank. Oh, there's overflows in that, obviously. Just about every tank has overflows in it. So and all the overflows are just holes drilled in the tank. These are really old shop tanks, by the way. Like, yeah, 20 years old sort of thing. Well, secondhand 20 years ago. They're still working fine. But yeah, overflow there. The water overflows into the tank down below. And then it gets pumped from the canister filter back up into there. That's it. Pretty straightforward. So 2 tanks into one. One heater does 2 tanks, so you don't need multiple heaters, multiple tanks. Exactly the same with this system, which is my baby Malawi cichlids. There they all are there. I've moved a whole lot out of that tank. They're down the bottom. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. This one though, because it is a 4-foot tank divided into 3, I've just got the water pumping up into this PVC pipe, which is the same setup as all those. Oh, you should see the wind out there. Look at that. You probably can't hear that, but I just had a huge gust of cold wind. Anyway, getting back to the video, the water pumps up into here, and then, yeah, the water overflows into all 3 of these, and they just flow back into this tank here and back in. Water looks a lovely yellow color because I need better lighting, but exactly the same again with this one. There's an AQUARIUMS canister there, pumping the water from this 4-foot into this 4-foot. And the overflow on this is just there. And that overflows in there. The overflows are just nice and slow, and the filtration is in the tank. So I use a lot of sponge filters, obviously. So there's pretty much sponge filters in every single tank. And if the power goes off, the sponge filters stay on because I've got battery backup with all of those. So that's how that works. Let's jump around the other side. Now, this is a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Yes, I have giant tubs. Now, I've just turned the Murray cod tub off. That is a huge, nearly metre-long Murray cod in a big tub. I'm about to hook up filtration to that because this was all heated. Overnight, my water's gone down to 22 degrees, which is a little bit too cold. I don't like 22 degrees, especially for stingrays and all sorts of stuff, which is pools in the open. Yes, so we are heating up a stupid amount of water. 1,100 litres, but that's turned off. 1,100 litres, I think these are about 900 litres. This is 2,500 litres. And then we have another 9-foot tank here with big peacock bass, giant gouramis, stingrays, giant gouramis, turtles, stingrays, big Saratoga, which I think I've had for 5 years now. Yeah, he's getting very, very big. But this is a 9-foot by 4-foot. That's a 10-foot by 5-foot. Pretty simple. So there is a big wave maker in there. There is a pump down there pumping the water up into this, and that is the overflow going into this. And then we have water pumping from this into a big biofilter there with UV. That water is pumping out into this pond and into this pond, and then it is overflowing back into here. I have another pump there, which is pumping water. Usually it pumps to that, and then that overflows into there, but it's now, I've just taken it out, put it there. So the water is pumping into here. It is going into that big blue filter thing there, which is a K1 pressurized filter. And then the water pumps back in, and then it overflows all the way back into there. I know, it's sort of been set up kind of wrong, because every time I move stuff around, I just hook it up to this and hook it up to that. So eventually I'm gonna move and everything will be set up properly. Famous last words. I know. Hey, look, we can only dream. So this is just obviously aquaponics. Yes, we're growing mint. Check that out. Yeah, that is basil, but like purple black basil. Creepy, eh? I know. Anyway, that's just part of the filtration, you might as well say, which is just pumping the water into this and then back in. Whole lot of cichlid grow out here, some fancy fish in there, some peacock bass and Oscars in there. Now I have 2 Aqualogic controllers. Oh, they're only reading 22, 21 at the moment. They're usually set at about 23 degrees. So yeah, overnight it got too cold, so hence why I've turned that off and about to hook up a filter to that. Murray cod is fine down to like stuff all degrees. So he's not going to get heated for the next month while it's cold, and that'll save me 1100 litres to heat up, because I have 2400 watts of heat going through one controller and 1800 watts going through the other one, which is crazy. I know, stupid, stupid, stupid. I am going to look into swimming pool heat pumps because I think they're going to cost a little bit less to run. But yeah, I still have to look into all that and do all that stuff. And obviously insulated sides and stuff like that. As I sort of said in the last video, I work 7 days a week pretty much. I'm here 1 day a week doing stuff and then in the shop full time. I think I worked out like it's 80, 90 hours a week. So I don't really have much time to, oh, it's 2 in the morning, let me do all this sort of stuff. So it's sort of just sitting there, and that's my excuse at the moment. But heat pumps, I think, would be a better way of heating up. You know, the big heat pumps you use for swimming pools would be a better way of heating up all this. And obviously having it all insulated and a little bit more user-friendly. So yeah, I think by next winter, we're going to have it rigged up slightly different. So you'll probably see a few videos on me upgrading and changing filtration, and there's a fair few filters I want to try. So Evolution Aqua, which do those big filters, if we zoom in, that big thing there covered in dust, which is a huge, huge filter. I don't even know how much volume that has. I'm guessing that's like 300-400 litres. It's probably more. Let's say 500 litres of water in that filter. Yeah, they're designed for big koi ponds in the UK. Awesome, awesome filters, but they retail for like $3,500. Yeah, it was horrifying buying that thing years ago. I wish I got more, but I'm not that rich. But I want to upgrade to some of their newer filters. I'm still going to use that one. But yeah, just really, really awesome filters. Anyway, that is the filtration and the heat and how crazy everything is. I know, it's just a complete big junky mess. But as I keep saying, I'm not rich and I have limited time to do stuff. So to redo it better, 1, I need money, and then 2, I need time. Anyway, that is filtration and heating and what I use. And obviously it can be improved on, but it is what it is. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, click the thumbs up so I know. I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful warm day, because it is freezing. Oh, I'm going now. Goodbye. Oh, thanks heaps to all my members. Thank you, thank you, thank you.